Good morning. Is it afternoon yet? Good morning, everybody. Welcome on in. Get on in here. How's your day going so far? Mine's pretty quiet this morning. Pretty quiet around the house. Welcome in. Welcome into the mod team. Of course, thank you for being here. Forrest and Rachel and Butterfly are with us. Tricia, good morning. Good morning. How have you been? Hope y'all had a good night. Everybody stay warm. It's still cold in Florida, or cool. Let me rephrase that. Not cold, it's cool. So to me, it's cold though. But hopefully, it gets warmer and continue to get warmer. But I feel like I heard a little snippet this morning of something about it's going to warm back up for a few days and then turn cold again. I'm like, okay, so I'll just wake me up in another month and we'll be good. We still got some lingering effects here. Okay, Butterfly, cool. She had to get out and get some morning errands ran. Hopefully, this volatile type weather will slow down soon. It's always going to be something, though. Everybody just stay bundled up and weather aware, obviously. All right, guys, there's not a lot of new, like groundbreaking, earth shattering news to discuss that come down in the Nancy Guthrie case. A few interesting things that were talked about that we're going to get into and talk about. Something like must have bit me. I felt like something bit me on my arm yesterday, but there's no like sign of anything that bit me. But man, it itches. Like, I don't know what's up with that. It's bothering me. It's Friday, y'all. Friday the 13th. Y'all, are y'all superstitious? You got a wind advisory, Tricia? I got a lot of birds singing outside the window right now, and the window is open. It's pretty here today. That could change. I don't look at the weather a ton unless I hear tale of some stuff coming. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should look. Clocks, calendars, weather. It don't matter to me. It's going to do what it's going to do regardless of what I say, do, or think, right? It don't affect me unless I got to go out the door. Otherwise, it's going to do what it does out there. Hey, Hawkeyes, welcome in. You're going to listen while you work. Don't work too hard. So, a couple of things that we talked about yesterday were talked about last night on a couple of, this one show that I watched. I'm going to get into a little bit of that. You're not superstitious, Tricia? I'm not like me either. Things that people might find superstitious, to me, I don't find superstitious. Like, that makes me opposite of it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to walk under a ladder and goofy stuff like that, just in case. But if I see 5 black cats in one day, I'm not scared to death that the death guy is coming knocking. I'm like, what are you trying to tell me, universe? Like, that's the kind of the way I take stuff like that. Like, oh, you saw a black cat, something bad's gonna happen. Oh, yeah, but I saw 5 today. That's different. That's a sign. They're trying to get my attention to warn me. See, there's a difference between my way of thinking and that other person's. Hey, Jet, welcome in. Welcome in. All right, guys, so every time we turn around, Brian Koberger's sliding back into a case somehow, some way. That little guy, he's like Maureen described those pesky little stalkers who won't go away. Well, actually, I don't mind that a Koberger. I want the goods on the guy, and not all the people in the town. But anyway, going back to what we've been talking about, like, could the perpetrator of Nancy's case be watching the news unfold, right? Now, I'm not going to sit here and say they're watching YouTube, because media is the media these days. I think the line is gone, especially now that a lot of mainstream media people are being fired or jumping ship and running full force to the YouTubes that they used to throw shade at. and now I'm supposed to welcome them with open arms. Okay. Okay, we'll do that. We're doing that now. See, it's we're all the same now. No more social media, mainstream media, the media. How about that? All lumped together in one big basket. So has the perpetrator watched anything in the media, right? We heard like after Koberger was arrested and the Bernhardts came out and spoke some about the Celebrite stuff. We have not seen that Celebrite report yet, Miss Bernhardt. But I know you have it. And I know you sent it to Olivia Gonzalez. I know, hey, send it all to her. But I'd like to see it too. So, anyway, we learned that he had followed some stuff on YouTube about himself, right, about the Idaho 4 case. Well, apparently he was also following Brian Enton. Brian Enton's known about it for a minute, but Brian just don't. Some things bother him, embarrass him. He don't know how to take it, and he didn't know how to talk about it. But he finally did. We'll see what he had to say. Did y'all see that? He didn't do it. I don't think he did it on his actual video. I saw it on News Nation. And so if you're the perpetrator of this crime, you got a couple of ways you can view the media and consume the news on this case. You got live streams sitting outside in front of the house. And you also have very informative investigative reporters to watch, right? Kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. I wonder if Koberger was watching the night Nancy Grace plopped that desk down in front of the Idaho 4 house. How come we're not giving her shit about that today? Like, I can't forget that. That was a little much, Nancy. And chick, we go way back. I'm talking all the way back to my kids were babies and they're grown. Well, that I can't forgive. Like, what was that, ma'am? That was a little weird. Okay, enough of the morning salty rant. Okay. All right. I've been bored lately, so I'm likely to get into a crazy mood. I get bored, things could get sideways. I got to find something to do to entertain me. And a lot of times that's me trying to entertain myself. So y'all just have to bear with me. I'll forget that I'm live and not talking to myself here in a minute. All right. I know y'all, unpacking my head can be quite the challenge sometimes. Okay, so News Nation dropped this last night at some point, and Brian Enton was on there talking to Jesse, of course. And so he talks about how after he interviewed the Bernhardts, she's like, oh, by the way, Brian was also following you, and here's proof. And she sent him a screen grab from Brian Koberger's phone. All right, so let's see what they have to say about this.
Big. Now, as you may know, it has been 40 long days since 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie went missing from her Arizona.
And of course, today's the 41st day. So, yellow hearts in the chat for Miss Nancy. God, love her.
Home. And while we still haven't learned who allegedly kidnapped Today's Show host Savannah Guthrie's mother, we have learned something else. We have learned a pretty astounding revelation about another case that you're probably familiar with and may now relate to what we're talking about, because it turns out News Nation viewers aren't the only ones who think that Brian Enton's reporting is top-notch, because apparently quadruple murderer Brian Koberger is also a fan of our intrepid reporter. You see, Koberger was apparently watching videos of Enton covering his case before he was ever arrested for the brutal murders of 4 college students.
Wondering which one of y'all is going to figure it out first. Hope there wasn't no DNA on my sheath. That's what he was watching for, to find out, really. What if they got on my DNA?
I gotta say, more than a little frightening, right? But it does raise...
Look at that face. Could you imagine the face he made when he realized, when he went to bury his kill kit or whatever he did with it? Where's my sheath? You idiot. He starts beating himself up in the head and stuff, smacking himself with fists. That's what I picture happened.
Is an interesting question. Could Nancy Guthrie's alleged kidnapper also be watching Enton's coverage of this crime? He's been on the leading edge of every new development, so it would make sense that whoever took Nancy has been following him in hopes of maybe staying ahead of investigators, right? Joining me now for more on this revelation, this strange revelation, is News Nation senior national correspondent Brian Enton. Brian, my gosh, how did you learn that Koberger was following you?
Yeah, I mean, look, it is kind of creepy to think about. I guess I wasn't that surprised, but the way I learned about it is because remember the digital forensic experts who went through his phone to get ready for trial with Celebrate. They actually told me like, hey, just so you know. He was watching your videos. He was following your reporting, and they actually sent me a screen grab. You know, they used the software to pull the information off of his phone, and there was me, a picture of me doing one of my videos.
This is it. We're
right
showing
there,
it right.
And so, look, he's known about this for a minute, but I want you to know right now, he has never publicized it, never went on his channel and talked about it. But the other couple of YouTubers that did get watched absolutely ran live and talked about how Koberger watched them. There's your difference, Brian. You're such a nice guy.
Here.
Yeah.
Humble.
Yeah, that was one of the ones that they sent me, and I haven't really talked much about it. I found this out months ago, just because I don't know. I guess I maybe tried to put it out of my head. It just kind of creeped me out. But again, I mean, I guess I'm not that surprised, considering much like with Nancy Guthrie, I was there for months. I was outside the house every day. I was covering every little update, and that.
Could you imagine what that would feel like when you find that out and it's like in your face and you know that it was being done? Now, going forward, like he said, he's trying to put it out of his head. It was creepy. Do you think does he think about that moving forward with cases he covers? Like, whoa, the weirdo could be watching me, and would that affect him? Don't it, you know what I'm saying? Could it make him nervous or make him really watch what he says, or does he really just want to put it out of his head so it doesn't enter his thoughts when he's trying to report, right? Because you want to be that fair and unbiased. He's like, these creeps can't be watching me; it'll affect me. Yeah, Brian's integrity is way different, isn't it, Rachel? I remember the ones that ran to YouTube and bragged about, Koberger was watching me. Like they were special. No, he was watching the reporting, you freaks. None of y'all was about to figure this shit out. None of yous. You still can't. Hell, still trying today. But there's 5 shows running today alone on the Koberger case.
I've been doing the same thing here, so I guess you just kind of have to assume whoever did it is probably trying to take in all the coverage.
So now that thinking about it, processing it, how does it make you feel knowing he's watching your coverage?
Yeah, I mean, like, again, I think I just try to block it out. I mean, I just try to focus on the job and obviously just getting the facts every day and reporting. And I think if I thought about it too much, it would probably just, like, freak me out too much. So I think maybe that's why I haven't talked about the Koberger thing until now, just because I didn't want to think about it much. The same kind of thing with whoever did this to Nancy Guthrie. There is some new information I found out today, though, Jesse, that kind of relates with Nancy Guthrie. The sheriff did a new interview today and said, he was asked specifically, do you think that this suspect could strike again? And he responded, absolutely, which is not something that I was expecting him to say. We're outside his office right now here in Pima County. And he did follow up and say, we still believe that it was targeted, but we can't say that 100%. So that was also just kind of troubling to hear him say. I mean, he literally said absolutely when he was asked if the suspect could strike again.
Okay, so 2 parts about that. One, it seems to be that he's just hedging his bets, right? He's saying not that he has new evidence to suggest this person's on a.
Sorry, Jesse cracked me up. Nanos is hedging his bets. You damn straight he is. Word salad fucker. Let me just take that down. We know already. We know. Targeted attack. Everybody's safe, but maybe not. We don't know. Again, we our best guess. Enough of that already. But isn't that wild, that Koberger. So if you think about it, though, in today's age, right, of social or of media, mass media, everywhere at your fingertips, well back in the day, 70s serial killers, they were also watching and consuming the news, but it was much harder. But they were usually local, right, wherever they're doing they weren't all moving across country committing these serial killings or whatever. They're located in an isolated area, so that those areas are reporting the news, right? So that's how they could watch it. And we know, like, the smiley face killer and BTK would communicate with what? TV stations Isn't that odd? That's never been heard of before in our entire lives. No, that would never happen. But it happened. It happened over and over and over, actually. People would reach out to the media stations, cut out little letters from the magazines and glue them to paper so they couldn't trace their handwriting. That was back before things got a little elaborate. You know what I mean? So it's not a stretch to think they're sitting there watching. Wouldn't you? If you committed a bad crime and it blew it, everybody in the country knew, you're going to be sitting there watching too. What do they know? What are they doing next? Well, what do they got? And look at JLR out there. At least he's not running around following the SWAT team still. Well, they'd lost him to begin with, so we're good on that part. So what are the chances? We've talked about that here, in the beginning of the case, actually. All this time, 41 days, you can't tell me this perpetrator, if the person at the door is still with us, they're watching everything. If they're no longer with us, then they weren't the only person involved. Whoever was involved, they all chilling and watching. I wonder if they think they've got away with it yet. Yeah, Butterfly, he talks out every hole he's got, something's flying out of it. I'm trying to be nice about that. He's got anger issues. It's obvious that it goes back all the way to the more I learned about him, I've completely written that dude off now, because I know men like you, son of a bitch. I know men like you, and you need to stay very far away from me. I don't care what title hangs in front of your first name. It could be doctor, lawyer, sheriff. Get away from me. Nowhere in my world would you exist. I wrote him off a long time ago. Disciplinary action problems and that he faced, having to resign so he don't get fired. Then he goes and becomes sheriff one day and he's willy-nilly moving people. No, dude, get out of here with you, messy little girl. And women get the bad rap for being messy individuals. Look at this grown-ass man over here being a little girl. A spoiled little girl. Oh, don't even get me going, guys. Oh, shit, fucking nanos. Nano. He's a no, Tricia. Nano is no. I like that better than nanu, because no. Get the hell out of here. Hey, Kentucky Lucky. You're not getting notifications. Aw, we just got started. All you've missed so far is me just talking. And then we just reviewed Brian Enton on News Nation talking about how he learned Brian Koberger was following his coverage on the Idaho 4 case. So, of course, that led us to discuss, could the perpetrator at Nancy's door and anybody else that may have been involved, are they also watching? Right? It makes sense that they have been. Unless they're living off grid somewhere, completely off. Think about that for a moment. They should probably check into all the areas where people would live off grid, because that's your perfect place to take somebody, to hide them out for however long. Whether it was a short-term plan or a long-term plan, you could pull it off if you're living off grid. Who the hell's going to see you and know that you got somebody in your house? I didn't have that on my bingo card, but now I do. Hold up, I gotta make a note. I gotta actually do some because there's a lot of there is outside of the gym show. There's a whole bunch of van life people that love that area, and a bunch of off-grid people out there as well. They're not smart enough to pull this off and still not get caught. I don't mean that derogatory, like there's something wrong with their senses. I'm just saying stash house, because I've been trying to figure out where would my stash house be. My real house or a stash house? Stash house. Off-grid would be perfect. The further away you are from society, less chance you are to be seen doing anything. And if you are a recluse, you can live in the city and nobody would ever know you had somebody in your damn house because nobody talks to you because you don't talk to them, right? You stay to yourself. Leave me alone. Don't look at my house. It's dark and dreary and all the things. It's hard for me to trust a house I never see a window open in or a curtain. Like, who lives there? Dracula? I'm a let the sunshine in kind of gal. Until nighttime comes, then y'all got to go with your peeping eyeballs. Get out of here. All right. Lots of off grids near New Mexico. And that's on our, we're going to be having a discussion about where would you go if you took Miss Nancy, right? I've been asking that question for 41 days. And I've looked to, because the New Mexico, the entire right side of the state, the entire, I know what's on the other side, been all over that map. Whole entire right side's New Mexico. You're right. There's a lot of that in that whole area right there. Kentucky also has some places. Yeah, there's a lot of places because they'll travel around. The van life people, a lot of them will move around the country. Some will stay in certain areas. Some will move with the seasons. You know what I mean? But you got those off gridders. They'll set up wherever the hell they feel like it. But if you're going to do, like, say if you were an off grid person that had Miss Nancy, would a kidnapper go temporarily set up shop to stash someone, right? I feel like not. They probably got another like bunker situation going on or something. Who knows? Stash house in the city. Who knows? The outskirts of town, recluse type person, off grid, would fall more in line with a stalker to me. Maybe started an off grid lifestyle on purpose a couple years ago or something, right? Who knows? Can't take any possibility off the table. If I got to keep robbery gone wrong up here, which I'm willing to do, then you got to keep mine on the table too. Come on, man. It's too good. Yeah, why wouldn't they be watching, right, Hawkeyes? Why wouldn't you? Especially when you know that every news agency out there is clamoring for information. And then we had that hot and heavy source shit for what? A good week and a half. Somebody was talking somewhere. And then notice all that kind of stopped. I think a big meeting might have been had. Who the hell's talking to the media? Because you're going to get fired in about 5 seconds, right? They're like, oh shit. Thank God the media does not have to reveal their source. That was a whole big thing back in the day, by the way. Court hearings, Senate hearings, all kind of stuff. I paid a lot of attention because I was a very young girl. Well, I think I was about 14 or 15. It intrigued the shit out of me because it was freedom of speech, right? Does the media, can you force them to divulge their source? Like, we're talking big investigations, political stuff and all that, right? And yeah, no, you can't. As long as they word things a certain way, they're not outright. Like, there was a conversation the other day, I think it was over on Megyn Kelly with Garagos, and it came up about Savannah and the family suing Banfield. And they're like, nope, absolutely not. It would never work. She can't do it. Because of the way Ashley presented the source, and the way it was done, there's just nothing they can do about it. Because everybody's trying to say she's mad. Savannah's mad about it. Well, I don't even know where that came from. Produce the news article where you saw that. Is that hearsay coming out of the buildings of NBC over there at 30 Rock? That's what it sounds like to me, right? Gossiping fools. I would like to be a fly on the wall in the studio, actually, because one of you inside that building might be being investigated. We got random restaurant workers being investigated. Why not the one in the building that may or may not have had a beef that people are actually talking about now, maybe? I don't know. It's Hollywood. Can't make this shit up. Or can we? Well, you remember Watergate? Well, Kentucky Lucky. You know what? I was a little girl, and my pawpaw, he loved for me to read, right? Read to him. And that's how he taught me to read. He loved cowboy movies. So, like, when I was in like first grade, checked out cowboy books, right? It was always cowboy books reading to my pawpaw. But I would sit in my grandfather's lap and read him the newspaper. And I would read Watergate to him. And even the Cuban Missile Crisis. I'm in Florida. My God, we know all about it, right? I was a little girl reading this shit to my grandfather from the newspaper, sitting in his lap. He just wanted me to pronounce the words correctly, but I was retaining everything I was reading at the same time, right? Yeah, the big investigation. Who's those sources? You got where I was going with that, right? This ain't small potatoes compared to the big investigations where sources could actually be harmed or it could matter, right? Things like that. So there's that area where the media gets protected. And I'm not mad about it because I watched how it all unfolded and I heard both sides, right? And listened because that outcome was going to be huge going forward in the way that the media was able to conduct itself. I don't know why when I was younger, stuff like that really caught my attention, and I paid attention to the stuff that most people were like, "What the hell are you watching? Turn MTV back on." Right? I'm like, "Well, hang on a minute, this is interesting too." Good memories, good memories. Thank God I still got my brain to have these memories. New studies are out about drinking lots of coffee helps with the Alzheimer's, and I drink plenty. But I have two grandparents on different sides of the family, right, that both suffered from Alzheimer's. So I'm a bit worried. Y'all start to notice things, man. Don't be afraid to say, "Hey, you okay? Need to clear your head." All right. So there's also some talk out there about Annie's car. We're going to get to reviewing something else here in a few minutes, but I'm going to get a couple things out of the way. So about Annie's car, right? Why haven't they returned it? Why? And Chris McDonough from the interview room, the little guy. I don't mean that derogatory. I don't just men in general. I probably shouldn't say it because they might. I wouldn't be offended if he called me little girl. It just would not bother me a bit. I'm not. That's just not my shit. I don't care. But I didn't know that a lot of folks didn't like him and felt some type of way. I don't really care either. Y'all go do you. But I watched certain interviews over there, and I know that he's really stuck on Annie's car, like cannot let it go because he doesn't understand why they haven't got it back yet. But an FBI agent made a really good point about that car. And if I go into my files here, I could show you real quick. But Brian Koberger's car, when now granted, he was driving the white Elantra, right? Tied to the scene in Idaho, tied to a knife sheath, blah, blah, blah. Y'all get it. But when they took apart his car, they took the car apart. Seats came out, gas pedal, brake pedal came off. We've got all the photos of this car. So this guy was saying, then Nanos came out and said, we're in the process of giving the car back. Then he come out and, everybody was like, well, what is this process? What do you mean? This guy's like, remember, they probably took the car apart. They didn't just go download this car's system data, right? It wasn't like plug in the cell phone, just download the data, give them their car back. That whole car was processed because guess what was found inside that car? I guarantee you Nancy's DNA was in that car. But skin cell or hair. Now we got to go deeper. and make sure we don't have blood anywhere. They took Koberger's car apart, and guess what? Nothing. Nada. Nothing. Oh, there's stuff in there, but it was nothing to do with no victims. It was pretty clean. So if they had to, and like he said, they would ship parts of the car, probably went to Quantico, right? For testing the elaborate, we got to test this shit top to bottom. So I don't know if that's the answer or not. I don't know if I'd be so stuck on it. It is odd that the other people who were raided got their cars back, but this one didn't. Maybe they didn't take them other cars. They obviously didn't take them other cars apart. Y'all know what I'm saying? Because preliminarily there would have been no DNA found in those cars, like a hair or a skin cell. But Annie's car, I expect there to be. So I wonder if that's what they did, right? I would expect them to go deeper with that car because you have to rule them out. You gotta. They're the last ones to see her, first ones to go look for her. Family, y'all get it? They'd be out of their minds to just go take a statement. Okay, well, we'll do the best we can. Go home. No, the infotainment system, yeah, they did way more than just download that butterfly, right? Way more. So I don't know if that's the answer or not, but I don't think it's never meant a lot to me that they hadn't got the car back yet. Yes, I've wondered why, duh, but it didn't make me think that they were holding out to file a charge against, Annie and her husband. Because I would feel like if something turned up in the car, they would have arrested them. Blood. Anything turned up on the devices, they would have arrested them. So I just didn't know if y'all had heard all the ramblings and the talk about the car. Hey, not me. Yes, thank you. Y'all don't forget to hit that like button, please. I try to remember to do all the creator YouTubey things that we are supposed to do, but I forget. So I thank y'all when y'all do it. Forrest always trying to remind us. I appreciate all of y'all, especially those who are just listening, whether you're at work, at home, doing all the things. Thank you for listening. And of course, we love our chatters. Speaking of chatters, Court TV's making some big changes over there, apparently. Now, we talked about that here a few weeks ago, how they got sold and Law and Crime bought them. I think some people on Twitter are just figuring out that they got bought by Law and Crime because downtown Julie Brown, as I always called her, they let her go. I don't know if y'all are fans or not. I was not a big fan. Polished and pretty, one of those things to me. It was never a hard hitting, give me the goods kind of show. But it was a cute show. So she's leaving Court TV, her show, I guess they're rebranding whatever they're doing over at Court TV. I guess Benny feels pretty secure. But anyway, so Jennifer Coffindaffer, don't know if you're big fans of her or not. I am not. I like transparency. But do you, boo? But Jennifer Coffindaffer announced, well, people on Twitter just got, rallied behind Julie, encouraged her to come to the YouTubes where life is beautiful. And no, it's not the dark side after all. But come over here. Water's fine. Looks like she's jumping in with Jennifer Coffindaffer. Guess what, guys? They're going to treat you to a weekly crime and coffee morning show. How original. I could not help myself. I can't help it. Maybe, oh no, that's just too much. That would make me petty. Then I'd be living in their space. I cannot. I gotta live way up here. Way up here where the vibrations are high. That's so funny to me. It will be interesting, Rachel, to see how they do Court TV going forward, because does Law and Crime feel like they have the Law and Crime, they have Law and Crime, whatever, they got Law and Crime, then they got the Law and Crime Trial Network, right? So that's 2 platforms to stream trials. Is they need more room still? There's so many, right? So what are we going to do with court TV? Will it be formatted the way the trial channel of theirs is, just running trials, or will it be more show oriented mixed in with trials? You know what I mean? Talk shows surrounding better talk shows, I should say. Better guests, not just whoever's popular and trending. Because sometimes they're just not our people. They're trending for the wrong reason, and Vinny and Court TV missed the mark on why. And they're like, oh, look, they're trending. Let's bring them on. And we're like, why do you have them on? Oh, we still thought they were cool. We're like, no, not today, dude. Coffin doofus. I like to call her J Cough. I called her that from, okay, so years ago, this place I worked, I managed a bunch of children, and they would take your first initial from your first name and the first syllable from your last name. That's your name. J Cough. That's how I named her. and, it reminds me of another word, I'm, I'm being silly. It's just J Cough. It reminds me of something. So that's how I named her. She got the old school from when I worked in a restaurant and managed a bunch of kids who come up with a stupid way to call people their friends. Yeah. Welcome to my world, J Cough. People probably wonder why I call her that. That's why. Goofy shit like that. J Cough. Well, I bet they're going to have lattes and cappuccinos and talk about stuff. Okay. Maybe we'll check it out. Just we'll give her a chance, maybe. Hey, we can review something one day. We can have like a live reaction show for the fun of it when I'm bored and got nothing else to talk about. Would that be petty? Hey, it might be informative. I could be having this all wrong. Maybe we should wait and give it a chance. Okay. Are y'all looking forward to it? What are y'all thinking? But what about these mainstream media people who end up coming to YouTube? Ashley Banfield did it. And we've got some who do both, have been doing both, like Jesse Weber and like Brian Enton. Of course, they do it differently, but y'all know what I mean. It's fine to intermingle and mix it. I'm fine with that. That's the media, right? The mass media. It's just funny when they don't have a spot on mainstream anymore and they find their way to YouTube. Because it's a dog eat world. It's a dog eat dog world out there on the mainstream media channels we hear. Wait till they get to the YouTube streets and see how it can be. Lord, I hope they're strong. They think people on X give them hell in their comment section because of their mainstream media appearances. Wait till they hit the YouTubes. Oh, Lordy. Julie needs to strengthen up. Well, she's got her epi tough cookie in this space. Let's do it, Hawkeyes. You want to come do it with me? Email me, saltysleuth@gmail.com. We might have to have us one of them coffee and gossip sessions or something. All right. So Nancy Grace also aired. I hadn't watched her shows in a couple of days. Are we good on the show? Okay. I hadn't watched anything she had done in a couple of days because it felt like it was just talking about the same stuff, because some of these shows start doing that where we just talk about the same stuff. But so I was again trying to find pieces that are different that we haven't talked about yet. Yes, the small-ish. Yeah, this channel has been growing, and I appreciate the growth, right? But it's organic growth. I don't do anything fancy or anything deliberate to try to like force it, because I don't know what to do that, right? I'm not that like creative. That's where the creator stuff comes in. I'm not a creator. I have to create a thumbnail and I have to create a playlist or whatever, or some rhyme or reason to my show. I have to create some thoughts, right? But as far as creating entertainment aspect of it, I don't, this ain't even entertaining. It's just discussions on true crime. So I've tried to let that guide us, and man, lo and behold, you guys have showed up for it. And I love you guys for it. I remember when I only had that, I'm like, I haven't hit 3,000 yet. I'm like a small channel chugging along over here. And that's the way we want it. And look, my chat's not going crazy either. Like, with just nonsense. I like for y'all to join the conversations. And y'all notice a lot of the talk too with some of the experts, other than them trying to profile the guy at the door, they're circling back to some conversations about those early or the very first ransom letter. Because that's the one that did not go to TMZ. You know what I mean? It got so murky that, oh, it was TMZ. TMZ is getting all these letters. Yes, they were, but they didn't even get the very first one. They got a second one, right? When they got the second one to the station, TMZ also got one because the first station did not broadcast that they got it. So why go tell TMZ? Because maybe they will go broadcast it. Like, why did nobody get that in the beginning? Why would they even contact the news? I don't know. Go interview BTK and Smiley Face Dude and ask them why they contacted the media. Took a risk there, didn't they? But they did it. Postage stamps and all got them in trouble in the end. But they did it. So back to the first one, right? They go. And why hasn't the FBI caught them? So now there's tweets going around about how maybe that person's not in the U.S. Finally, people are coming around to our way of thinking. Hey, 83 Socket, welcome in. The best commentary in true crime. I don't know about that, but thank you. I try. Sometimes it's hard. You're up here all by yourself and you're like, oh, yeah. So it's like I like to chat with you guys. Otherwise, now when I have a guest up here, it's hard to keep up with what you guys are saying. So I'm trying to focus, you know what I mean? But when it's just me up here rambling on, I like to ramble with my friends. And that's the way I feel like I am just one of you guys who chose to do it on a platform and conversate with my friends about these cases, right? It's not about me getting up here and being all preachy and telling you guys what's up. I don't know what the hell's up. I just got good guesses and thoughts like you guys. So we're going to try to keep them coming. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of this, what Nancy Grace's discussion was about. Butterfly, remember last night when we were talking on the live about the possibility of the gravel out front, being dusty, whatnot, and the perpetrator had to walk through the gravel. And when they got up on the patio front porch, and stepped on the rug or even the patio itself, the front porch there, did they leave a dust shoe impression, right? What about in the house? Because they got into the house, right? Whether it was the sliding doors, the back patio door, whatever, wherever they got in at, did they leave some faint shoe impressions? Now, with the shoe impression outside of Dylan Mortenson's door in the Idaho case, the naked eye couldn't see it. It took luminol to bring out that shoe impression, and boy, did it bring out that impression. But that's not going to work with a dust print, right? So there was some talk about that last night on this show, and I was like, damn, what if? But what if there was a dust shoe impression? Here's the problem and the scary part to me. We had no and staff on board. Granted, he wasn't the one in the house collecting evidence, but I hope that really inexperienced homicide team, they didn't collect the evidence either. Tex did. But I hope somebody spotted the impression, if there was one. and photographed it and tried to take an impression if they could. Whatever they could do with it, do it. And I hope they didn't miss it. Step on it, step over it. You know what I'm saying? Before they hit the lights and brought out their blue lights and all the things they have. So I'll pull this up. I got some timestamps marked out because we don't want to watch the entire thing. Now, another part that was more interesting than that, because I mean, if they got a shoe impression, come bring it, please. My favorite of all times, tire, tread, and shoe impressions are my favorites. I don't know why. Probably going back to my old days with forensic files, right? Like we're talking old days, and the databases that are out there on these, right? I wanted so bad for those impressions in front of King Road to match one tire on that stupid Elantra. I still don't know if it did. Its documents are sealed up to high heaven. Anyway, so remember when Brian Enton reported that he went back to that Mexican restaurant, guys? Savannah's video that she did for NBC, where she took her mom back to the Mexican restaurant. Annie was there with them. There was that whole big piece on the NBC show. We reviewed it here. And a few weeks ago, I think it's been at least over a week, Brian Enton went to that restaurant and spoke with some of the employees there. Do y'all remember that conversation? Shoe impressions are awesome, Kentucky. If you get one, you got some gold, possibly, right? Like identifying these purchases at the Walmarts, things like that. You could tie so much back, and if you catch the perpetrator and they got that pair of shoes, you can prove that shoe was that impression, right? You got them. So, do y'all remember the conversation about the restaurant that Brian went back to, the Mexican restaurant? So he said that when he went back over, or when he went there and he interviewed the employees, the FBI had been there. And they questioned them along the lines of, not like, they probably asked about who all worked there and anybody leave recently kind of thing. That's standard. God, I hope that's detective work 101. Let's be serious. But outside of that, they were asking about anybody unknown, anybody lingering, anybody acting suspicious, anybody staring uncomfortably, anybody wanting to take photos, those kind of things. According to Nancy Grace's new reporting, now this guy Dave on Nancy's show, for those of you who may not know, he's been with Nancy a long time. Cheryl McCullough from what's her show called? I forgot. Back in the day was a producer for Nancy Grace. Okay, that's before she became what she is now, CSI and all the things. So on Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan, his co-host is Dave. Dave is always over on Nancy Grace chilling. So y'all will recognize the voice if you ever watch Body Bags, the podcast, because you won't see him, but you always hear him, right? It's unmistakably Dave. So he was on there last night, per usual. So they talked about this restaurant. And apparently the FBI goes back again. Now, this aired on the 12th yesterday, so the 11th and the 10th would have been the days he's talking about, which is not surprising if we saw the FBI go back into the neighborhood questioning again. Did you lose a signal? How was your Wi-Fi? How was your internet? You sure you didn't see anything? You sure you don't got a camera? Whatever. Was it just that? Following up on what we've already done. Zone 7, thank you, that's it. Butterfly. Zone 7 is Cheryl's show. Okay, so let me pull this up. So they had a conversation about that. Apparently, though, when they go back to the restaurant, they're asking follow-up questions about people who were there that day. Why would they be doing that? They're not looking for a random robber hanging out at the Mexican restaurant. Two options. A kidnapper preparing for their crime, or a stalker watching their victims. But Nancy Grace and company are going to assume the FBI is back because they think a restaurant employee who they're going to chalk up to just an uneducated restaurant employee saw dollar signs that day and pulled off an elaborate kidnapping. That's my take on what they talked about. But we're going to review. I'm down with everything they said except for that had to be a restaurant worker. Like, what? They're asking them questions about people lurking in the background, not who got fired recently, who quit recently. They weren't following up on that. What? Okay, we'll give them grace. They also apparently visited the restaurant where the glove, remember the glove 2 miles away, and went back to a restaurant employee. Of course, they visited the restaurant because once they got the name, they had to go find their guy. So they dug up his entire life and they knew he worked at XYZ restaurant. So, of course, they're going to go in and ask questions about the restaurant worker. So, some of this to me is like, why is it going over y'all's heads? That's where I get sometimes. People who are supposed to know so much more than we do. Okay. And I want to get y'all's take on it as well, if you're seeing it the way I see with why the FBI was going back over there, especially with their conversation. Let me get this. Uh-oh. She started talking in my ear. Let me get this pulled up where we need it to be, so we don't got to hear all the extra read all about it stuff. I don't know why the thought process cannot move, right? It just, nothing's moving the needle on this conversation about this guy at the door. They all go circling back to robbery gone wrong, or some person in town decided I can make a buck. It's weird. Because I think that person trying to make a buck is not going to be so careful. You know what I mean? They're going to make mistakes that they didn't know to avoid. Do you get what I'm saying? I mean, they're not a criminal. Like, not a hardcore criminal, I'd say. Okay. That would be my take. All right, why is this acting? Okay, let me get the screen up. Okay.
Joining us tonight. Dave Mack, I want to hear first about the FBI going to a Mexican restaurant and re-interrogating restaurant workers. Now, it's my understanding there are two restaurants in question. One is a restaurant to which we can attribute the glove that had DNA that was found a little over 2 miles away from Nancy Guthrie's home. There's that restaurant in play, and there is the restaurant that was featured in the Today Show segment. Let's see that as we're talking. It was called an Arizona Homecoming, as I recall, and Savannah went home to visit her family, and while there, she and her mom and I think Sister Annie went to their favorite Mexican restaurant. And this is that segment. Savannah's Arizona Homecoming is the El Charro Cafe, and this is from our friends at Today. I believe it's this restaurant, not the one connected innocently, I might add, to the glove found near Nancy Guthrie's home. Is that right, Dave? It's this restaurant, the Today Show restaurant?
That's my understanding, Nancy. The Today Show filmed Nancy and her family eating out and having a good time as a family, but the FBI investigators were back there interviewing workers who were present the day the Today Show set was they were filming, and they're asking them specific questions about people that were there the day of the shoot. Was there anybody acting oddly? Was there a fan that seemed overly, trying to contact with Savannah and touching and talking? There was a lot of asking about what took place that day, who was there, and how did they act.
See? Nothing about other employees, your coworkers. It was all about somebody else being in that restaurant. But I don't know if that just went right over Miss Nancy's head. Not Miss Nancy, but Nancy Grace's head. But she can't get away from it has to be a restaurant employee that saw dollar signs. Like, fuck, what?
Anybody weird? Anybody stand out? That's what
Farmer prosecutor.
they're asking, Nancy.
And I want to nail down, Dave Mack, when did the re-questioning occurred?
Yesterday.
Okay, yeah, Happy. I'm not sure where the guy worked that had the DNA on the glove, but he didn't work at this Mexican restaurant that we're talking about right now, right? The FBI went to that restaurant that he worked at. Of course they did, to investigate him because his DNA showed up on their tree. So that, that's that. But I don't have any idea where that guy worked at. This is the Mexican restaurant where Savannah took her mom for that NBC piece. They were back there again, allegedly, questioning again. This is backing up what Brian Enton's already reported, but Dave here says they went back again. And then they're questioning about people in the restaurant. But after they lay all that out, Nancy's going to go, well, it has to be a restaurant employee who did it, but not the gloved restaurant employee, a different restaurant employee, right? Did I explain that okay, Happy? I didn't know if you understood what I was saying. Welcome in, by the way. Yeah, I don't know where he worked at. I never heard or saw that, but I didn't really look for the information either.
And the day before.
So they spent 2 days back at this restaurant. That video from our friends at Today. Now, we can report tidbits of facts all night long. But what do they mean? Are they probative? When I try a case or investigate a case as a prosecutor, I get tons of data. You have to marshal your evidence and determine what evidence proves something and what evidence is merely, well, that's curious, that's interesting. So let's follow this through to its logical conclusion. Joining me is Joe Scott Morgan, professor of forensics, Jacksonville State University. He is the author of Blood Beneath My Feet on Amazon. He is the star of a hit podcast, Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan. But for my purposes, he is a death investigator. He investigates all sorts of death scenes. I don't say homicide scenes. I say death scenes because that can include suicide, natural causes, accident, unexplained, and of course, murder. So, Joe Scott, this is what we know. Not just 1 day of interviews, but 2 days, 2 full days of an FBI elite team at that restaurant.
If that's true, they were literally just back at that restaurant. Okay, so think about that. I'm not doubting their source or this reporting at all. It could be absolutely accurate. Just like I don't doubt Brian Enton's, right? I got no reason to doubt Nancy's reporting. Nancy and I go way back. We're like old friends. I can say shit. That's the way I feel. But if that's true, they were just there. Are they just circling back, making sure? Or are they really looking for something because they don't know what else to think at this point? Do they have a particular person in mind? That's interesting to think. Where the hell are they? Where'd they go? Where'd they take Miss Nancy?
Interrogating all the restaurant workers, from the valet boy to the guy in charge or the woman in charge. All of the waiters, whoever was tending the bar, there the day of the Today Show shoot.
Oh,
This has been 2 days over the last 48 hours. Let's figure out why. What about it, Joe Scott?
In the economy of an investigation, Nancy, time is the coin of the realm. And so where you're going to spend that time is very important. And so obviously they've decided that there is data there to be gleaned at this restaurant where they could go in there and actually begin to kind of pry out any kind of information, something that maybe somebody saw, maybe something that they've seen from a videography standpoint. I don't know if they've, maybe gone back to NBC, collected this tape. Maybe there was somebody milling about.
Oh, Joe Scott, bring the knowledge, sir. But I don't think she's listening.
And they want to be as probative as they can in this environment. And as well as I do, in the restaurant world, workers come and go pretty quickly now, don't they? And I wonder if those same people are still going to be there from, say, for instance, when this videography was taken, that would be there too.
Remember when we reviewed this video, I said, damn good and well the FBI has reviewed that video and looked for anything, any person in that background, anything that they would find suspicious that the average person may not think anything of it at all. I'm sure security was high that day. They had to do crowd control, right? You have to do that. You got a celebrity in the damn restaurant. So there was security there, but that don't mean nothing. Don't mean shit. They reviewed this video. Hell, they're reviewing all the video from around town, perpetrators in the night and random cars flying by.
Today. So they're going to burrow down deep into this and expend a lot of time. Obviously, the FBI.
See them people in the background? All suspects. Guarantee it.
Knows something about this. They think that there's something of value there, or they would not be wasting their time. And this also goes to.
You think getting caught is bad, or you disposed of your DNA accidentally 2 miles from a crime scene. Don't get caught in a video either. Fuck.
To another point, Nancy, it appears as though they're kind of narrowing focus at this moment in time. They've narrowed their field, and this is going to be a big part of it, I think.
Brian Fitzgibbons joining us, Director Operations, USPA Nationwide Security. He leads a team of investigators.
It's really good they went back, Hawkeyes. Maybe they went back with a different line of questioning to try to provoke thoughts from these people. Y'all know what's weird? If we go look at the disorganized statements of Dylan Mortensen, I've yet to see them do a video where she was sat down with that, remember the DoorDash driver in the case? And how that agent came into the room and sat down with Molly, the damn DoorDash driver, and walked her through damn near like a hypnotic session on every single thing she did, from opening the car door, getting in. Now you've shut the door. What did you do next? You reached for the ignition. You turned the key, trying to trigger Molly's memory. But I didn't see them do that one time with old Dylan. I'm not lucid at the moment, but I was 20 minutes ago. 20 minutes later, again, I'm not. I don't know what's going on around me. I saw things and I heard things. Could we have gotten that same exam? I'm looking for it to pop up. Yet to see it. So the FBI has their way of interviewing people, right? So do they have a different line of questioning? Or is somebody at the restaurant that works there could very well be connected? Would they still be employed there? But yes, go back and follow up on those questions. Especially at this stage when you got nothing. Or do they have a lead that we're completely unaware of at this point? That shit's under wraps, whether you got a kidnapper or a obsessed individual.
Around the world trying to find missing people, and interestingly, including extractions from Mexico. He is a former Marine. He is an Iraqi war vet. Brian, I agree with everything Joe Scott Morgan just said. I also want to refine hour deliberations as to why they are re-interrogating the restaurant crew. What do they believe happened the day of that shoot? Think about it. Think about it. There is that Google search that we know of.
All right. She's going to think that, remember the Google, yeah, looking at Google. Well, that was like the Google trend. Google has come out and said stuff about it. Experts in the know about that stuff of all. We heard this in the Koberger case, right? It popped up there too. Oh, the Google trends before he was arrested when nobody knew his name were spiking. Jay Koff actually put all that out there. It is what it is. It doesn't mean anything. But Nancy's about to go right there because she's going to think that one of those workers had dollar signs and Googled all that information, which spiked the Google trend. It could have happened that way.
Found on Google Trending where someone searched Savannah Guthrie's salary and the address of her mother, Nancy Guthrie. Now, can we overlay someone that was seen, someone that was...
If I'm about to believe a restaurant employee, because I have worked in many, many restaurants as a manager. My son's dad still works in the industry. Some very intelligent people in the business. Whether you're an employee or in the management, it doesn't matter. But to see a restaurant employee go, damn, that's a rich customer, I think I'll kidnap him. And I'm going to pull this shit off and never get caught. I might call my friend that I grew up with because that dude's into crime. He knows what to do. Could it be that? I'm looking for a person who's not going to be so messy at a crime scene, like Idaho 4, when everybody tried to tell me it was frat boys. Like, fuck, they're messy kids, right? What? I don't know. I can't get behind that it was a restaurant worker that saw dollar signs that day. If so, they're a damn criminal genius.
At that restaurant with that Google search. See where I'm going with this? They're trying to ID someone that would have a motive to kidnap Nancy Guthrie.
They did. Absolutely. But they were asking questions about people in the background. Specifically, Joe Scott just talked about it. Dave talked about it. Brian Enton has talked about it. Of the specific line of questioning. And it's not related to who works here with you. Is your coworker weird?
We're not looking for a burglar, a robber, a rapist. We're looking for a kidnapper with...
She left out stalker.
...a motive. And the restaurant reinterrogation fits very well with the overlay of that Google Trend search. See where I'm going with this? That's who they're looking for.
Yeah, I agree. And in this case, right, investigators are moving out to the periphery, working under the assumption that Nancy was targeted. Okay, so that's based on all the information we have. We have to draw the conclusion that she was targeted due to her connection to Savannah and Savannah's celebrity. This salary search, the restaurant, expands the periphery of folks that she was interacting with who would be interested in, hey, how much money did Savannah make? She's now become a target. And is someone at that restaurant focused on learning what the net worth of Savannah is and what the potential value of a ransom for Nancy would be?
You know what? Joe Scott Morgan, or as he likes to be called, Joseph Scott Morgan, I know to some people it may sound far-fetched. It's not far-fetched. There are...
What's not far-fetched? My theory or yours?
Are con artists and scammers just circling like vultures all the time.
Con artists and scam artists are vultures in the restaurant industry? Is she singling them out now? They do exist, Nancy. You gotta watch out for them snakes.
They see an elderly lady like Miss Guthrie and think, bing, why do I want to work at a restaurant for minimum wage and tips? Or why do I want to fill in the blank when I can come up with a scheme and get millions of dollars? That's the person we're looking for.
Okay. Okay, I gotta take a moment because I think Nancy just solved the case. They work at the restaurant. Like, duh, they needed the money. They saw Miss Nancy and went, well, shit, I'm about to blow up my whole life. I'm walking away from my life. Now, anybody who works at that restaurant, if their family's listening, if you've noticed any odd behaviors in your family member that works at that restaurant, their behavior has changed, their pattern has changed, their mood has changed, all the things we were told to look for, y'all need to call that tip line. Don't call No-No's office. Call that Phoenix FBI office. Get a hold of one of them guys and tell them.
Yeah, this is for somebody like this. This is very low-hanging fruit, Nancy. When you think about it.
No, he's gonna kind of get on board and let her have her theory. He's not there to challenge her. He's just gonna. He does it all the time.
You know, and plus, if you walk into an environment like this and with this cause of celebrity, if you will, and you've got somebody that's very high profile and they do see an easy target, Nancy, you know what? When Mrs. Guthrie would have walked in there, just keep in mind, she would not have merely walked in there. They would have seen, she would have seen that they would have seen that she's the weakest among us, right?
Oh.
She's barely ambulatory. She has to have assistance when she walks.
He just said that Miss Nancy was barely ambulatory. Did you see her sitting at that restaurant? Granted, this was back in November of last year. They all have her down as a decrepit old lady who could not move. And I have heard this for 41 days. She had a cane, man. That plain and simple.
And so they could target her, you know, just kind of profiling her on their own. And they see her adjacent to her daughter. You get this search coming up, and she can become, at that moment in time, kind of a high value target. And that's kind of the risk that you run when you're in the media like this. You really put a big target, not just on yourself, but also your peripheral family members.
So the person would live and work in Tucson at the restaurant, living their life, working at the restaurant for tips and minimum wage. Along comes Nancy, feeble old lady who can barely walk, with her celebrity daughter, and bells went off in somebody's head that day. And now here we are. Why can't they get into the conversation about who might have been in the damn background watching? FBI seems to be a little concerned about it. Imagine that. I wonder why.
As well.
And back to Brian Fitzgibbons joining us, USPA Nationwide Security. Brian, if you think scammers, con artists aren't all around you, just the other day, I called a friend on APD. I was so irritated because at the same parking lot, I saw a man and a woman, the same man and woman with their children, scamming for bus fare. And I'm an easy target. You know, I see someone asking for money and I feel like it's my duty to give them whatever I have, right? So the first time they got me, I had a total of $3 crumpled up dollars. I gave it to them and drove
$3 crumpled up dollars. She gave it to them.
off. They were going to catch the bus that evening. Well, 2 days later, there they were. And what made me so mad is they have a baby and another little child, maybe 3 years old, scamming with them. So my point is,
that happens all the time, Nancy. Did she not see them the day she gave them the $3 crumpled up dollars? Point is, she's mad. There's another section to this. I'm going to skip through to that section because it's the last part that we're going to talk about. Yeah, I mean, you're clearly hearing what the FBI allegedly asked. Oh, hang on. I didn't know what my cat was doing. My sister walked up to my window and I hear my cat going meow at the window. I'm like, what in the world? She's saying hey to my sister. I know she loves you. She does love you. All right. It's like, well, my cat never does that. Like, was something outside the window? It was my sissy. Okay. Yeah, Nancy wasn't helpless, Rachel, and we've heard it over and over. And I tried to dispute that in the beginning. Like, why is everybody saying that? It's ridiculous. Because the sheriff come out and said she couldn't walk more than 50 feet without her cane and made everybody think the worst, that she just couldn't walk at all. But that's, I mean, shit, she lived by herself. She took Ubers by herself. Nancy could get around. She was still going to church on Sundays at her friend's house. It, we got to we have to let common sense hang out. All right, let me pull that back up and I want to get to the very last part because it talks about the shoe impression part. So it's interesting that the FBI is back over there, though. I mean, asking questions like that. It was interesting when I first heard Brian report on it to their line of questioning, right? When he reported on that. Okay, let me get this set up. Lord Nancy. Okay, so I need to get this damn thing out of my way. Okay. Okay. Here we go. I think. Ah. Okay.
Quantico, there is a team of experts that analyze shoe prints. How do they do it? Well, we have our own expert, Joseph Scott Morgan, professor of forensics, Jacksonville State University, who has expertise in that. How does it work, Joe Scott? And apply your knowledge to the Nancy Guthrie kidnap.
Okay, first off, you have to have something that appears to be a shoe print. Okay, and it can come in a variety of different kinds of mediums. Nancy, we begin to think about: do you have soft soil where someone has stepped into it and left a print behind? Do you have someone that has tracked through some type of substance like blood or grease or something like this, and they've left kind of a negative image of their shoe on the ground or on a smooth surface? Or, and I think this is critical here, where someone steps in like a dusty area and then they enter into a home that might have smooth, like ceramic tile floors, and they leave a dust impression on the floor. And from that, we would do things like electrostatic lifting, where the actual print itself in the dust, that negative image, is transferred onto a sheet of mylar. So you have to recognize that first. Once you have that template in place, and there's an example of an electrostatic lift that we did at JSU yesterday.
Electrostatic lift. Something tells me no. I don't know if they had that. Could they do that? I don't know what they did with. Lord, I just feel like if there was even any sort of dust type foot impression inside that house anywhere, even partial, they would have missed it. They wouldn't even have seen it. If Nancy had like the tile terracotta flooring, because a lot of those homes do still have that, especially the older homes, because you got to consider the style of Nancy's house, right, and how old it really is. Um, would you? You're not gonna. You may not see that at all unless you're really looking for it. Did they even think to look for it?
Once you have that print, then their catalog at the FBI in Quantico, Nancy.
See how you can barely see that on that floor? Well, you guys on the screen still see a different image, I think. I got two different images going on here. One's on my phone and one's on the PC. The one on the PC right now shows a wood floor, right? But you can barely see the print. So if they're not looking for it, would they just walk right on top of it, disturb it somehow, or never even notice it? My goodness. Maybe there was one undisturbed by the time the FBI got in there and they found it, if there is one.
Is mind blowing the number of different prints that they have to compare to, because here's what it comes down to at the end of the day. If in fact you want to try to track a shoe back, you have to understand the branding of the shoe. Okay, so they have this huge catalog that they can choose from of all of these different shoes and manufacturers out there, and you would compare that question print or impression that you get at the scene to what they have cataloged out, and that they can begin to kind of narrow their field.
How do they physically do it, Joe Scott? Physically. If you were doing it with an intern, let's say, how would you explain to them what to do?
Okay. Well, first off, you had an image of some of our casting shoe prints there just a second ago, and those are actually done in what's referred to as dental stone. And so it's just like a teeth impression that you get. So what would happen is if you have an impression in the dirt, okay, first off, you have to protect it very, very carefully. And then you're going to put a framework around it. You're going to mix up the dental stone mix and then smoothly apply it into that section and let it sit. Okay. Once it has set, all right, then you lift it out and you allow it to complete firming up or drying. And it's from that you begin to pick out detail. And if you could throw the camera up at me just one quick second on.
Isn't that wild? They can pull it off dirt. Dirt can be hard, it can be soft, right? Just even putting anything on top of that, you would think would destroy it. So it's wild to see how they actually do it.
Show you something. So if you think about the ball of your foot right here, we'll pretend it's my hand. If we supinate when we walk, we roll our foot in, okay? Think Missy Bieber's case, Nancy, okay? So we roll our foot in, all right? If we, that's pronate, I'm sorry. And then supinate, we roll our foot out and we walk on the edge. Well, it doesn't matter if you've got Adidas, Nike, Asics, whatever kind of shoe you're wearing, they're going to take on your distinctive walk or gait. And so you'll have these distinctive wear patterns. So we have to be real careful when we lift these casts out of the ground, because that's the kind of detail that we're looking for. It's not just merely, well, they've got this brand of athletic shoe. It's this brand of athletic shoe, and it has been worn by this type of person. So if you go out to a scene, for instance.
Isn't that cool? Because you absolutely, if you're whichever way you roll your foot, you're going to have more weight bearing. That impression is probably going to be a little more intense on that side. I would like to take one of his classes.
Like to a house, you conduct a search and you collect shoes, you hang on to those shoes and compare them to the casted material that you did at the scene.
You stated earlier that electrostatic lifts are as important. We see him walking on gravel. I don't see how they're going to get any print off gravel.
I don't either.
But inside the home, at the door, at the front door. But of course, that was ruined by the scene not.
See, he steps full on completely on that mat, both shoes. We all have known for 41 days, well, how 30 something since we found out about that damn mat being still at that front door. But he's full on stepping on it. So did he not deposit a lot of sand or dirt at that point because he'd already walked across the front patio, depositing whatever was there. But they didn't take the damn thing to even, I don't know. If they had a damn big old shoe impression, they probably wouldn't have noticed it, or they'd have thought it was irrelevant. You know, it's a floor, it's a doormat. It's supposed to have footprints on it. Like, it could have been important footprints. Good Lord.
Being protected, and photographers and the general public walking up on the doorstep taking pictures of Nancy Guthrie's blood. So I guess the next
Hey, now, it is not their fault sheriff left it out there and didn't warn nobody. So of course they took photos, and they say you put a desk down in front of the Idaho 4 victim's house, ma'am. Stop it.
best choice would be in the home. Can you get that electrostatic lift?
Yeah, and that would be, Nancy, we think about a point of entry there, okay? And let's just assume that doorbell guy, or however they're framing him now, makes entry through that door. If we have one of our CSIs go out there and work that spot, the area where you're going to harvest the most data, I think, is probably that point of entry. Now, here's the one caveat. You have to separate all the other footprints. But let's think about the environment that's out there in Tucson. Now, I've spent time out in southern Arizona in the Army, and I can tell you the ground out there, and I've been out there many more times. I love Arizona, but that area out there is very, very dusty. So as you contact that spot and you walk onto that surface, you're going to leave that print, and there will be a myriad of these prints around there that you can actually lift. The trick is you have to kind of cull these things and separate them out. What's viable and what's not. I think what's going to come into play here too, Nancy, is enhancement of the photographs at the scene, so you can try to identify those shoes that individual has on from any number of those spots and see if you can get back to a specific manufacturer.
From that.
Now, with all that said, I wouldn't hang my hat on it. They got some evidence like this. We imagined there would be a lot more shoe prints in the Idaho 4 case, but all we had was a latent shoe print. That was all they had as far as shoe prints go in that whole entire house that pertained to the scene. As far, you know what I'm saying? There's a good chance if there was dust on that shoe and it deposited onto the ground, on the patio, whichever one he entered through, or in that house, this sheriff's department would have missed it.
Incredible technology. Let me jump to the possibility of a retinal scan.
Oh.
That's been brought up.
Scan our eyes now.
In many quarters. Straight out to Christian Hammond, you met earlier tonight, artificial intelligence expert, professor of computer science, Northwestern University, director of the Center for Advancing Safety of Machine Intelligence.
Oh, yes.
What is a retinal scan? Because you've got a great shot of the perp's eyes looking directly into her door cam.
So we really do have a collection of little signals.
Now, remember the day that Dolphin came up on panel with me and we were talking about the case? She brought that up about them using these eye scans. I'm like, yeah, but I had no clue, Don't be scanning my eyes. I don't want to do that part. But yeah, so here, he's going to talk about it now and go into a little more detail about that.
Signatures that we carry with us all the time. Our faces, our fingers, our literal signatures. But one of them is the structure of our retina, which tends to be unique. So if I can have a really great image of my retina, later on identifying me, another image of my retina can be matched against it, and we can see it's me. The problem is that to get most retinal scans, you need a deeper imaging. That is to say, you use infrared light to get the right photo. So that gives you a target, a thing that you are looking for. So if I've got retinal scans of a bunch of people, then I can take their retinal scans later and match against them. But if I don't have that retinal scan, then what am I matching against? And then there's the image of the perpetrator while he's while he's looking at the camera. It's a powerful image, but it's not enough. And there's no enhancement that you can do here because there is enhancement, but it's not enough because there's just not enough data in there. There aren't enough in the way of deep, small, tiny pixels to that we can pull out and see his retina more clearly. And so there is a real difficulty there in terms of going from his image to the image that we have already, but we don't have that image already. And then the quality of his image is such that it's just not a good match. I think that the conversation about the shoes, the clothes, the gait, all of those are going to be much more powerful tools.
And there you go. All that to say, there's not enough information there, ma'am, to do an eye scan. It ain't just like we scan your eyes when we gave you your driver's license and now you're in a data bank somewhere and we're going to solve all cases going forward. Did y'all look at the picture of the guy's eyes? Notice the light reflection, all the things happening to distort what his eyes actually look like, right? It would have been hard to pull anything from that, even if they were able to scratch that whatever, there was never going to be an answer in that way. I wouldn't want there to be an answer in that way. That's a little much. Like, I don't even let my phone have privileged information about me, like my fingerprints and stuff. It don't need to know all that. What if it turned on me one day, right? And deposited my fingerprint digitally. What if somebody stole my fingerprints, hacked my phone, and stole my finger? I'm like, it's a whole thing. Remember, we'd be warned scammers are out there. Elaborate crooks are out there. They could be scheming ways to get that information off my phone and use it against me one day. I saw the Terminator movie. I know what happens when the machines get mad. Reminds me of going on the ride at Universal at Cyberdyne Systems, where everything is super. Like, what the fuck? We haven't heard anything about, possible shoe impressions even being anywhere in this case. Now, is that something they do have? They've managed to keep that sort of, out of the media? Because we haven't had no, any major leak updates lately. Now, Brianna Whitney, what's that? Is that her last name, Whitney? Or what's the name she goes by? She did an interesting interview with a DNA lab specialist. And the way this lady, she reminded me of, I think, Rachel, you'll have to listen and tell me, but because I was laying there with not watching the screen, but listening, I was laying on my bed. And I did end up looking because I'm like, where's this voice? Where am I hearing this lady? And it dawned on me, she reminds me of Jennifer Auger. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just her. I don't know. Maybe it's more her voice, the way she spoke, right? But this lady explained things like beautifully, like so much better than anybody else I've heard come and try to explain any of this. Because Brian Enton also mentioned a couple days ago about going to a DNA lab. And I think that last night when he did his piece video, he said that tonight's video will be about him going to a DNA lab. So I'm assuming that he's doing the same thing that Brittany had just done. But I wanted to watch hers with you guys. We got some time here before I have to go. And let me pull this up. Did I put a timestamp on hers? Because I don't know if I want to watch the whole thing. What did I? No, I didn't do hers out yet. Okay. It doesn't matter. Because we don't really want to miss it. Okay. Because if the perpetrator was watching the media, and he hears things like DNA found at the scene. What did that do? You know, Koberger really didn't know they had DNA. He thought they could because he knew he left that sheath. Did this person, what do they have? Oh, they got shoe impressions. Damn it. They got my DNA. Are they going to go in panic mode? Would they try to, cover their tracks even more at that point? Okay. Let me pull this up. Let me get it set up here. Okay, so this lady is going to explain about the DNA mixture, right?
Working on that mixed DNA.
There are several challenges. The first challenge is to identify an item of evidence inside that home that has a high likelihood of having the suspect's DNA on it. So if you have items from Miss Guthrie's home, we would expect to find her DNA on it. It's her home. So what we're looking for is an item that would have the suspect's DNA on it. And that's in an attempt to identify him. And so we want to find an item that has his DNA on it. We want to find an item that has a sufficient amount of DNA that we can utilize in the crime laboratory to get a result. And then when you have a mixture of DNA, ideally what we would want is to have enough of his DNA that we could generate a DNA profile to identify him. Several items that I would look at or have questions to the investigator. I have noticed that they haven't released a lot of information about how the suspect made entry into the home. So typically the point of entry.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Look at the grass back here. Now, the day the prosecutors came, they were really on that side of the house where the patio with the sliders are at. That's all dust and desert over there. The only green space in this entire lot is right there. But walking across that grass would have gotten rid of any dust on the bottom of those shoes. But what would they have left on? You know what I'm saying? There had to be some sort of an impression somewhere. But I have no faith those guys found it. I'll be nice.
Is one of the areas we would look at to see if DNA had been left behind by the perpetrator, because sometimes they use tools to get into that home and to pry a door open, or they break a window to get in. Sometimes they're injured and they'll leave their DNA at the point of entry. So I would be curious to know the point of entry and if there was any sort of damage and any sort of biological fluids left there at that point of entry. In addition to that,
like saliva from his glove. Now think about it. If the guy at the door was the only one to go into that house, he has to talk to Nancy at some point to wake her, to get her up, to get her to go with you, command her. Is he going to do it with a mouthful of flashlight, or is he going to pull it out and drop it in his pocket? Now, whatever you touch has got your damn saliva on it, mixed in with what? Because if he didn't cut himself, he is not leaving his blood, right? Like he didn't break a window and cut himself and then bleed. He's not leaving touch DNA through skin cells if he's all gloved up. What else? Could he leave? A hair? That's not going to be in the mixture, right? We're talking fluids in this mixture. I think it's the saliva off the fucking glove.
depending on what transpired in that home, I would want to know what the scene looked like, and if there were items that the investigators would have a good idea that the suspect may have handled or touched. I don't know if there was a struggle inside the home, if there was evidence of a struggle, and so there may be items that investigators may be able to identify that have a high likelihood that has the suspect's DNA on it.
Fluids, top tier for DNA, right?
Correct. So body fluids are very rich in DNA. So as you saw in this case, the first items of evidence that were DNA typed was a body fluid, blood, that is very rich in DNA, has a very good chance of giving a DNA result, and so that's why those items of evidence were worked first, as you would expect. In addition to that, that blood was right there at the threshold of that front door. And so you don't know if the suspect injured himself on the way in and that blood belonged to him, or if it belonged to the victim. And the only way you'd know that is when you DNA typed it. And all of those items came back to match the victim in this case.
So then you'd move on to touch DNA.
That's correct. So you'd move on to any other items or the second wave or the second group of items that may have the suspect's DNA on it.
Where does this all start?
So initially when evidence comes in, it's going to go through a serology examination.
Okay, so here's the parts, like the glove found 2 miles away, missed, by the way. So she's saying what the whole process is right here. From the time they get it, what they actually have to do to the DNA. And then they're going to explain the difference between with the genealogy part, the difference between what the state labs will use, really what CODIS will use to run a profile, and what the genealogical bases use when they run a profile, right? That we hear the SNP and the STRs, all the differences. She explains that better than any, and I've been listening to this shit for 3 years, and nobody has explained it as simply, in my opinion, as she has.
So serology is testing for body fluids. So depending on the nature of the case and what body fluids you suspect are present on an item of evidence, then we're going to do some initial testing. And that is what initially happened in any case that involves blood. So you do a preliminary blood test where you test that sample, and if it's positive for blood, that sample would then move on for DNA analysis. So depending on what type of case you're dealing with, whether that is a burglary or a sexual assault or a homicide, you'll have different items of evidence and different body fluids. So you're going to do that preliminary testing, and after you do that preliminary testing, you may end up going over to the microscope and looking to see what kind of cells you have present. We would do that first because if you have something that looks like blood, for example, I know that it's a common myth that if you had ketchup or something like that, we can clearly tell that that's not blood under a microscope.
Not blood.
Not blood under a microscope. And you can tell that by looking under a microscope. But most people don't have a microscope to know. So we have these very quick chemical tests that will tell us very quickly if it's positive or negative, and then those samples are forwarded on for DNA analysis.
So that's what would have happened with the Guthrie case. The
Yes.
blood that was found on the front porch would have gone through this process.
Yes, it would have gone through a preliminary serology exam. That leads us into the 4 steps of DNA analysis. There are 4 general steps. The first one is we have to get the DNA out of the blood sample, for example.
Yeah.
And so we're going to use a kit like this that has chemicals in it where we are going to extract the DNA out of the sample. So this kit comes with all of the chemicals that you need. And so what this does is, if you remember back to your biology class from high school, the cell is made up of fat with protein and DNA and RNA. Well, we want to get rid of all of those parts of the cell and just keep the DNA. So these chemicals would break open those cells, release the contents, and we would get rid of everything. And we would take that DNA sample and we would filter it through. And what we're left with at the very end in this filtered sample is a DNA sample. So we have to figure out how much did we get. So we're going to use an instrument where we figure out how much DNA.
What's this called?
This is called a Quant Studio, and this is used to determine how much DNA, and you would put your samples in this tray. Into this, we would put your DNA sample, and we would figure out how much DNA did we get out of it.
And is that a number? Is that like
It's a number.
2 or 4? What kind of number are we talking?
It is a very high-tech number. So this is a very high-tech way of figuring out how much DNA. And just to give you a reference, we work with very small amounts of DNA. We typically like to have at least 1 nanogram of DNA. That's 1 × 10⁻⁶. That's a very, very small
Yeah, I
amount.
don't even know what that
very, very
number
small
is.
amount of DNA. It's tiny, tiny, tiny amounts of DNA. And so that's why we can get DNA profiles from skin cells. And so we're dealing with very small amounts. And so then the third step, after we figure out how much DNA, We want to copy the DNA out of the evidence, and we're going to use little tubes like this. This is called a thermal cycler. And this is a very fancy instrument that what it does is it heats and cools. And the reason it heats and cools is we use an enzyme that copies DNA at very specific areas where we know people are different.
Yeah.
And the kits that we use are designed against those areas where we know people are different. We don't want to copy all of your DNA. We don't want to copy the parts that everybody has that tells you to have 2 eyes and 2 ears and a nose. No, there are specific areas within our DNA that are called short tandem repeats, or STRs. And this is where people are different. And this is how we can take a sample and generate a DNA profile and tell it apart from any other sample.
So what are those things that are different?
So let me show you what those are. I have them on my computer. So the areas in a crime laboratory that we look at are areas of DNA that have this pattern. And if you notice, can you see the 4 base pattern where it says CATG, and they're blocked out here in different colors? And you can see that they're repeated over and over and over again. So they're called STRs because they're short, they're tandem, which means they're right next to each other, and they're repeated over and over.
And I never knew that.
Yeah.
I've heard STR testing for years, and I didn't know exactly what that was.
Yes.
So this is interesting.
And all of us have areas of our DNA where we all have a different number of repeats. And so that is how I'm able to tell your DNA apart from mine, for example.
So you get the STR.
We get the STR results, yes.
And then what?
And then this is what the data looks like. So when we look at the data, first of all, this is what a DNA profile looks like. This is actually a mixture of DNA. And this is a profile generated during our research. And those areas of where the STRs are the addresses up here in these boxes. So that D stands for DNA, and I can enlarge this if you'd like.
Sure,
Let's take a
great.
look. Let me scroll down just a little bit. So see up here, it says D3S1358.
Yep.
That's like an address. That means DNA on chromosome 3, site 1358. It's like an address. And it's an address for scientists. What you see here is under each one of these boxes, if you have DNA from one person, the maximum number of peaks you're going to see is 2. One from mom and one from dad. But then notice here, I have 2 really tall peaks, and then I have this really tiny peak. This is how I know that I have a mixture of DNA. And the really strong peaks here is the person who donated the majority of DNA. And the really short peaks is the person who donated a very small amount of DNA.
So often are you looking for the small amount?
Very often.
Interesting.
Very often. And so this is what we talk about when we talk about mixtures, is how many people are in the mixture,
Yeah.
and how much DNA did each person contribute.
So, with that part being said, how much did each person contribute? If it's saliva, you would think there'd be enough there to hopefully get more than a partial profile from. Now, if they had enough there to pull a partial profile from that mixture, they can do familial DNA on that, which is going to be your IgG genetic genealogy tree. It took them 6 weeks to arrest Brian Koberger. They had that DNA pretty fucking quickly. They found the sheath when they found the victims, right? They went to work immediately on that DNA process. But it took a fucking minute, right, to build that tree out. Are they doing that here? Did they get a partial match, enough to get a trigger in the familial? Because that's a partial match is not enough for CODIS. But we had word salad over there tell us that nothing matched with CODIS. We don't even know what the hell you're talking about anymore. So I can't even make sense of why he said that. If all they got's a partial, or at best close to a partial. And she's going to, and that's for the STR, right? Because you got to have enough there to prove that we're going to get a match even. So she's going to continue to explain it.
And notice
somebody
because
triggered Jacoff again on the Twitters. She's big mad about people who are making a bunch of money off posting misinformation about Savannah's sister.
You have a difference in the height of the peaks. You can tell them apart very quickly, can't
Totally,
you?
yeah.
By looking at it. But if each person donated 50%, the peak heights are going to be roughly similar. So being able to pull out profiles becomes very, very difficult. And so that is what lends the complexity to mixture analysis is it good quality DNA? How many people are in, is it a mixture? How many people are in the mixture? And then how much DNA did each person contribute?
So let's say for the Nancy Guthrie case, we know there's mixed DNA in the home. Assumably, based on what you just showed me, Nancy's DNA would be those high peaks. She'd be the #1 contributor in her own home.
It's possible, but it depends on what the source of DNA was. Given that she lived in the home, I would expect to find her DNA on items of evidence taken from inside of her home.
Like a doorknob.
Yes, a doorknob, for example, or any item that she used in her home on a regular basis, whether it's a kitchen utensil or anything. But it doesn't necessarily mean that she donated the majority of DNA. It could be the opposite, where depending on what the body fluid is, you can have that ratio, those can flip-flop. And so, but you could also have her be the very strong donor and him be a very weak donor, which would lend itself to why it's been difficult.
So we're going to expect a lot of her DNA to be all over that house, right? The door knobs, the door handle, anything you can think of the perpetrator would have touched. He's not going to go in there and set out to touch everything in sight. He's going to probably try to touch as little as possible. The entry point to get in, Miss Nancy herself, doorknob, right? To get out of the house. Because you're not going to get her out over the pony wall at the sliding doors situation. So you got to go out one of the main doors. You got to open the door knob. And if Miss Nancy's startled, half asleep, can't hear, can't walk properly, maybe already injured, are they going to reach for that doorknob to open it, to go out that front door to leave? You would think if they did, their DNA would be more, right? Be on the top, the top DNA of all the DNAs on the doorknob, if they were the last one to touch it. Which, I guess, depending on how much slobber the guy had on his damn bite light, how much actually went on to his glove, right? If that's the DNA they're trying to work with. Because I can't think of any other possible explanation for a mixture of DNA there. Some lady walked up. I was trolling Twitter for anything that may be out there, and this lady walks up to JLR and tells him that it's a moot point to be out in front of Nancy's house. They need to leave, and he needs to go. He's at the wrong house, actually. He needs to go to Sheriff Nano's house. JLR's like, why to go there? And she's like, you just need to go over there. It's not a bad idea, JLR. Do it. Do it, dude. I dare you. That would make Sheriff Nanos so angry.
We know, we keep hearing in the case, we
We
are
get another
testing
streamer to follow him over there to video, to document everything about it.
DNA in the CODIS database, and we're testing DNA with genetic genealogy. Explain how the difference works in terms of preparing DNA for each set of testing.
This is a great question you asked, because this also...
Yeah, Butterfly, what other things did he touch? That's why I'm thinking, I don't think he touched more than he needed to. Honestly, if you're trying to commit a crime, my first thought process is don't do more than I need to, especially when it comes to creeping around people. I don't want to leave anything I don't have to do. Like I said, going into the home, he's got to touch something to get in there, regardless of how the damn guy got in there, right? Forced entry, had a key, whatever. He's touching something to get in there. He's touching something to get out, unless Nancy opened the door herself to get out. Other than that, what's he gonna touch in there? A bedpost by accident because he's right there trying to grab onto Nancy. You got to think when you walk into the room and you're trying to think of what their movements were. What would they have touched along the way, right? You need to swab every bit of that. And then the things you didn't think of. Even like the experts will tell you the toilet handle, you'd be surprised that how many take a bathroom break, right?
explains why it's taking a little bit longer, which is there are basically two pipelines, if you want to think about it like that. There is a DNA testing that's done in the crime laboratories called STRs, and that is the format or the areas of DNA that we look at where DNA is repeated over and over. And the number of areas that are the number of repeats that people have is different. In a crime laboratory, they're going to copy areas of DNA called STRs. And then in the ancestry databases, they're going to copy different areas of DNA called SNPs, or single nucleotide polymorphisms. So what you have is, if you do the testing in the regular format, which is STRs, and that's the format of our National DNA Criminal Database, then in order to do genetic genealogy, you have to test the DNA again in this other format called SNPs.
And that's where we're at now.
But what you have for genealogy looks like this. So what they're doing is they're looking at DNA, but instead of them being short tandem repeats, they're looking for a single change. So this SMP,
Yeah, SNP.
SNPs, so you keep hearing them talk about SNPs. Well, this is what a SNP is. Notice you have the entire sequence is identical except for this one single change. And you have 3 different people that are each color-coded. And each person has a different DNA base at that particular location. And that's what a SNP is. And so that is the difference between
And
what
boom,
goes
there's your relatives, right?
on in a forensic crime lab, what areas of DNA get copied there, and this is what gets copied in all of the ancestry databases. So this is why it requires 2 forms of testing. You have your initial testing that goes through the STR testing, and then in order to run a sample through an ancestry database, you have to copy the SNPs, so you have a second test that's happening, a second DNA test. It lent itself to cold cases, but then what you see now is an evolution where this technology is being applied to other types of cases where you have a risk to the public, or like in this case, where you have somebody who has been
Applying the genetic genealogy when there's a risk to the public, because it's such a gray area still. Justifying the use of IgG without major implications, legal challenges, right? I'm telling you, some big defense attorney is going to go after that one day, real soon.
kidnapped and finding
I feel like
the
the
perpetrator.
FBI trying to shore it all up. They've been doing that since the Koberger case. So when they realized, everybody realized what they realized, they're like, oh, hell, we got to shore this up quickly.
Is timely. And you also saw in the Moscow, Idaho murders, where what you had was a very brutal murder of 4 college co-eds, where the suspect in that case was young. He never had been in trouble with the law. His DNA sample wasn't in the criminal database, but what you had was a tremendous risk to the public. So finding him before he perpetrated another crime was absolutely vital.
There you have it. It was vital, and it's what solved the Idaho 4 case, no matter what anybody out there will tell you. It was solved because of genetic genealogy, and I'm not mad about it. I just know that it wasn't done by Othram. They had to stop their work, because they went as far as they could go legally. And they landed on the 2 cousins of Koberger. But then the FBI got it. Like, hold my beer, here we come. So now here we are today. Right now we're testing gloves 2 miles away. It's moved on. So that's why I talk about the constitutionality of stuff like that, because it so came up in the beginning of this case, the Idaho 4 case, and Ann Taylor absolutely challenged every single thing about it. But it just didn't land. She couldn't bring it as far as the legal. It confused the shit out of Judge. He had to spend like 3 days locked up in his chambers reviewing this tree that he didn't understand. He had to bring in one person they both sides agreed on to review the private personal information of all these people, right? It was a whole thing. So, a whole thing. It was crazy. A crazy whole thing. What are you guys going to do the rest of the day? I'm going to find something to eat, but I have no clue what I want. Like, none whatsoever. Even if I ordered something, I wouldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you what I wanted. I hate when that happens. When you know you want to eat something and you just don't know what the hell you want. Maybe he wasn't thinking about having the saliva on his gloves, so he was thinking he was fine, and so he was just not thinking about touching things, right? Yeah, he could have got complacent in there and not even give it a second thought. But he's still going to probably touch as minimal stuff as possible. So you want to check the bed itself. You want to check the damn night table, right? All the doors into her room, exiting her room, everything that you can think of. There's not going to be a whole lot more outside of that he's going to touch. Unless he's in there to rob the house and he's filling his backpack up and she wakes up in the process. Then he's touched stuff. But a lot of what he touched might end up in his own bag. Butterfly's doing her nail. Got a visit from the sun coming, and then she's doing her nails. She does her own nails, and they're beautiful. Like, I don't know how girl does it. She's shown me her nails. I'm like, what the hell? You did that? At home? How's that possible? Oh, Rachel's going to eat and then go shovel snow. You poor thing. I am so sorry. Mid-March, shoveling snow. I saw your pictures earlier. It looked cold. Like I said, when Forrest showed me his picture, it just looked cold. I was cold here this morning in Florida. It's cool again overnight. It's nice right now. I wouldn't mind eating something and getting outside for a little while. It's just, I miss my old place that I used to sit outside in. Her hobby is doing her nails. Yeah, my hobby would look, especially when the kids were little, like I would do my nails, but guess who destroyed them? And I never used like artificial nails. I have, well, since my kids were like grown, but when they were growing up, I didn't have time for all that mess. I just painted my nails and they would grow, well, but being a mom and a stay-at-home mom, I had to clean it all myself. I didn't have a housekeeper or nothing. I used my damn fingernails like the bionic woman. Remember her back in the day, she would open a can with her fingernail. If y'all know, you know, if you're a kid of the 70s. Bionic woman was badass. She could open a can in the kitchen with her fucking fingernail. All right. I use my nails. I will scrub with them. And before I know it, I've done ruined them. It's like, try to remind yourself, I couldn't, and I was always afraid that if I went and got my nails done, I would just destroy those damn things because I used them far too much. Nowadays, not so bad. I could do it now. I've just never done it. I've never went and got my nails done anywhere. Well, that one time I had that one girl do it, but I just never did it again. Wind storms 50 to 60 miles per hour. A lot of you are experiencing that wind. I know Rachel's been dealing with it as well over there toward Idaho. Yeah. I saw a clip on one of the storm chasers. I think it was the storm chasers. Anyway, there was like this major windstorm moving across, and they are all pulled off the road, right? But it had done toppled over one of the semis that pulled over. We get those a lot during hurricanes when they need to get off the interstate, but they're still trying to get whatever. It's getting down to the wire. Gust comes along, then things flip right over. And I don't think they're prepared for it, a lot of them drivers. But yeah, they had pulled over and a gust caught that truck and just flipped it right over. A sail car, right? We need cars that has a sail that's going to pop up when we need it. Safety hatch, like the NASCARs have that flap that flies up, when they're wrecking to keep them cars from going airborne. We need to put those on our real cars just in case. I've seen some cars go airborne. Not pretty. Yeah, y'all all be safe out there tromping around in this weather. Sometimes we just don't have a choice. It's easy to say, stay home, get your shit and go home. But sometimes we just don't have the option. So when you do finally get to make your way home, it's be super careful out there. And I hope none of y'all lose power, because damn, I'm from hurricane country. I know how bad that sucks. I'd hate to think of y'all out there in the cold without power. Okay, it sucks to be in humidity and 100-degree weather without air conditioning. It's going to be just as bad for you guys in cold weather without heat. I don't know if you got fireplaces and yeah, but I'm assuming y'all do, right? You got like the backup fireplaces where you don't rely on your electricity to heat your home. I'm in the South. We don't build houses with fireplaces and shit. If you got one, it's just for looks. It is not a necessity. Like people are like, what? No, we need air conditioners, right? So I'm sure y'all don't rely on just heat to heat your home. I'd so have me a big ass fireplace. I'd probably be spending all summer making sure I had a lot of wood so I didn't freeze to death. When we were kids and my dad had a camp at the river, they built like these. I was a kid, so they like built the first tiny houses for legit. And my dad had one up there, all my uncles did. But he had bought one of those old wood burning stoves, right? The old wood burning stoves, and put that in there. That thing was so cool. You got propane, yeah. There you go. And gas water heaters, there you go. See, we don't have it's not like the norm. Gas heaters now are a lot more than they used to be, running off the natural gas, but forever, everything was electricity. Electricity. You've never lost power where you live. That's cool. You know, some areas are more prone to it than others. And y'all know that living around your own towns, right? Like we used to live in this one place when the kids were growing up. We lived in that house for 10 years, but every once a month you'd hear it boom and everybody's power would go out. We would all know what just happened. The damn squirrel had just happened. He would run into the transformer. Well, not the same one, obviously, but they just didn't get the message that this big transformer was going to be in their way, and one would hit it all the time, and we would lose power. I've lived in neighborhoods where it could just a good gusty wind come and you lose the power, right? And then I've lived where you never lost power. It's wild. Underground utilities, I think, help tremendously, and Florida has done a lot to try to make sure even like the old neighborhoods now they've gotten to some of them to put in the underground because here it saves us a lot because of the hurricanes, tree limbs and shit knocking down your power lines. Y'all get that with the snow and the trees, right? When it gets heavy and knocks the trees down, all your power lines go down. So that's the nice thing about the underground utilities. Yeah, the damn squirrel every single time. And it'd be like in the middle of cooking dinner and had an electric stove, or it's like 100 degrees outside and it's hot. Fuck, now I gotta wait on the utility company to come and do their thing and try to be patient. Kids are hungry. I'm sweating. Yes, damn squirrel. I felt like going out there and painting like a big warning sign on there for the squirrels. Think they would have got it at that point? Danger ahead. We could have made them one of those little detours. Like, I don't know. We could have come up with something if we'd have just put some thought into it. We could just put some thought behind it. Man, y'all, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of people out there running around who do not have a lot of thoughts to put behind things. Uh-oh. Oh, wait a minute. Let me go back. Let me actually do this. Okay, so tomorrow is Saturday. I am planning to go live at some point tomorrow. I need to get with my mods and see what their schedule is looking like for this Saturday. I'm pretty much open throughout the day, afternoon, whatever. I don't really want to go late or into the night, but we will if we want to. I'm gonna see if I can line up a guest. One of our new friend Keith to the panel. He has been out of town all week. He'll be back soon. Y'all have rolling blackouts in Cali. We don't get that here in my part of Florida. I'm in Northwest, the Panhandle. I'm not part of that Central South Florida stuff happening over there, but we don't get rolling blackouts around here. Thank goodness. A lot of places do experience that though, don't they? Which is crazy to me for somebody who's never had to experience that. It's like I'm just glad that my state didn't go into some crazy weather thing and my governor run away like Mr. Fled Cruz. A lot of places do experience. Things so loud. Okay. Anyway. You got a pellet stove, Rach? Those are nice, right? I've kicked around the idea. I mean, I've seen the pellet grills and all that. Like, I want easy. I'll be honest. I like my propane grill because I get to walk out there and just like turn on. But I totally get it. I like my propane heater outside too in the winter, so I can sit outside in it when we have a winter in Florida. Can't go without the propane. Remember old Hank Hill used to work for the propane company. I don't know why that just popped into my damn head, but it did. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go for the day. We will continue to wait on, relevant news to come down about Miss Nancy. It's hard to believe it's been 41 days. It's hard to believe when we talk about cases where it's been that long with cases, right? What are we doing here? And why? Why? Why don't we have more of anything at this point? Rachel, how big is the stove? I'm curious. You got to send me a picture now. And now I'm curious because I've always wondered about that. Like I've never even checked into what you got to do, like buying these pellets or whatever. So I guess you buy them by a bag, you're saying? And one will last you 36 hours on low. Interesting. So off-grid person could do the same thing. They're going to probably, I don't know how much access you'd have to firewood in the desert, right? How much would you need in the desert to access fire? See, I got things to think about. Maybe I'll eat and ponder some things. Come up with some topics for Saturday's show. In fact, y'all come up with some. If y'all have any thoughts you want discussed, a question, something you may not remember from the past 41 days, or something you think I've forgotten about, drop it over on the community tab. Leave a comment behind this video, right? Y'all communicate with me. Let me know. You'll see me on the Twitter, but not often. I mean, I'll be there, but you don't see me communicate. Sometimes you do. It depends on my mood. But the best way is to leave me comments here on the YouTube because I get my notifications when you guys are commenting. And I try to make sure I go back and respond to each one of you. Whether it's a heart, a like, or if I've got a comment back to you, you know it. So yeah, if y'all want to talk about a certain aspect, if you've got certain thoughts, whatever, y'all join the conversation because that's what we're all about over here. And I would actually love that. Maybe I'll make a community post up here in a few minutes and post it out. That way you guys can drop information there, comments there about whatever you want to talk about. Things you might want to review again, right? Do we want to go back and review anything to do with those first two TMZ letters? I kind of do, just to hone in on some things that have been said. And the most interesting part about that whole thing is the way everybody who has, not everybody has seen it, right? But the actual media station and what Harvey has said about the meticulous writing of the letter. And people are wondering, could they have entered prompts into Chat GTP to generate the letter? Possibly. It doesn't matter. Someone still told them to do it, right? Right, Butterfly, you just reminded me. Going back, let me remind y'all, Julie, what's her name? I'm so used to saying Julie Brown. Julie, whatever that lady's name is from Court TV, they let her go. They're rebranding or whatever since Law and Crime bought them. So Jennifer Coffindoffer has announced that weekly she'll be bringing Julie over for a coffee and crime show, and they will cuss and discuss. Go figure. I left that part out this morning when I first brought it up. I told Butterfly, I was like, shit, we have coffee and crime discussions every day where we cuss and discuss, don't we? I always feel like somebody's watching me. Now, Ashley Banfield done stole my theory about him concealing the camera versus pulling it off with a vine. Wonder where she got that from. It just come to her one day. Cussing it. Can y'all imagine what they gonna cut? What cuss word? What cussing and discussing was the way she put it on the tweet. We will be cussing and discussing about Julie Grant. That's her name, Carolina. Thank you. Yes. We might tune in to do a reaction show on their coffee and crime cussing and discussing conversations. we go we can be petty too. Why not? We're women, remember? Never mind, I'm about to start throwing shade at ourselves. Oh goodness, I'm getting silly. All right. Well, we'll look forward to their big show. I'm sure we'll hear more about when they finally announce it. I hope Julie got that thick skin on and she's prepared to buckle up, Buttercup. These streets can be brutal, man. Brutal. Which reminds me to remind y'all to be safe out there. You got to think about voices, Jet, and you can't listen to Ashley or Julie. Ashley's better than Julie, though. But I get it on the voice thing. People will send me links. Watch this person. I'm like, I don't know how to be rude. I don't want to say it, but I just can't. Right? It's always that one person you just can't. Pink Panther emojis. Oh, Butterfly. We need a Pink Panther emoji, don't we? I haven't made an emoji thingy in a long time. I wonder if I remember how. Are any of y'all good at that stuff? I need help. I think I remember how to do it and what I used. Y'all have any suggestions? Y'all let me know. Any of you mods out there for bigger channels who might know, clue me in. Help a gal out. Look, monkey see, monkey. Look, she's got the 3 monkeys. There we go. Oh my goodness. Could you imagine the theories that may or may not pop out of those? Well, we'll give them a fair shake and we'll evaluate. We'll give them a moment and see how it works out. We might just laugh and have fun, or we might go, ooh, good thought. I don't know how it's going to work out. Extra coffee for that show. We need the big ass coffee that day, Butterfly. We not forget that little small one. We need the big ass coffee on days like that. That's what I call my large coffee cup, my big ass coffee. I've always called it that. Come at me with that little tiny coffee cup. Get out of here. I need that big ass cup. All right, guys. Well, I've had enough coffee this morning. I'll tell you what. So I'm going to go figure out something to eat, and I'm going to try to relax the rest of this evening. Hope we get some good news about Miss Nancy's case, whether they've moved in on a suspect or something's happening major in the case. Just kind of sitting around waiting on it makes you want to pull your hair out. I can only imagine how this family is really, truly feeling on the inside. And all this talk about, is she going back to work? When will her life go back to normal? Will they sell the house? Will they not? That is so disgusting to me. It's like America needs to chill with all of that. We're always chasing something. We're chasing a dollar. We're chasing fame. We're chasing a clock we can't beat. What are we doing? Their mother is missing. That's Nancy's home. It has been totally violated by a man at the door and a bunch of people on the street with no end in sight. Well, the end is there, but they don't know how to pull out and do it without the chat coming at them for doing it. All right, y'all. Enough said. Lord, I gotta put my yellow hearts in for Miss Nancy. I'm just like to the point where I want her found, and I want it today. And I know the family couldn't be feeling any more concerned about that than me, you know? I'm just some stranger on the internet. All right, y'all go have a great one, and y'all know the rules. Be safe out there in them YouTube streets, and I'll see you back here sometime tomorrow. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you all for watching this here video. Please like and subscribe.